Hello, everyone, and many thanks for joining today's stream. And of course, many thanks to all the members of our community that will watch this video later on after the stream. Today is 20th of February. Now it's 12 p.m. Moscow time. And as always, I have prepared quite a number of news on some major developments. And hopefully, you will find update, informative, and useful. In that case, like the video if you can, click that like button, leave some commentary. Comments always are helpful, and the likes, by the way. And share link, share this video with your friends. And my apologies, dear friends, that I was unable to make an update yesterday. I was just too tired, and it's supposed to be my day off yesterday. Company breached the agreement that we had, so therefore, if they are breaching the agreement like few days after I started the work there, what they're gonna do in the future? So I'm considering now my take on that worker. Maybe I will, just suck myself from that work, and for time being will be focused on this project again full time. We will see. We will see during the community chat this Sunday. I will share some additional information. But nevertheless, let's go through some news. And before I start, I want to thank one of the members of our community for donation on a day before yesterday, straight to after the stream. And comment from the member is a great job. I enjoy listening to you. You and your wife have a dinner on me, and member of community that I cannot mention because it's a business account. I don't want to highlight that name. Member of our community donated through PayPal. Thank you very much for support. If you are watching now, and also we have a new member on our Patreon. New member of Patreon community, Gusandra. Thank you very much for subscribing to my Patreon. I appreciate, dear friends, your support. Thank you. That's been said, dear friends, let's go through some news now. And I'm still a bit short on time, so I will try to be as faster as I possibly can. And I'm going to start with this somewhat strange news that I saw right before I launched the live stream, that an unidentified plane from the US flew into Russian airspace, according to Vzгляд newspaper. Let me give you some details on that. So, unidentified Boeing 787 from the United States flew into Russia near the Murmansk region, according to flight radar data. A Boeing 787 aircraft, which took off from their Andrews Air Base in the US, crossed the Russian border near the Murmansk region. Flight radar data indicates that aircraft's route passed through Greenland, Norway, and Finland before entering Russian airspace. The plane disappeared from the radar near the Kotlas in the Arkhangelsk region. Information about the plane's ownership and occupants is unknown. The purpose of the flight and the aircraft's subsequent fate have also not been determined. Interesting, isn't it? Interesting what this plane was doing in Russian airspace. I guess once plane crossed the Russian airspace, it switched off its GPS signal, and flight radar was unable to track movement of the plane. Did this plane landed on Russian territory or left Russian airspace? I don't know. No one knows at this point. Maybe this was a surveillance plane. Very much possible, because it entered the Russian airspace in Murmansk area in the northern Russia, northern western part of Russia. And Murmansk, dear friends, is in area, not Murmansk itself, maybe, but in area. There are some major Russian naval bases. Russian nuclear submarines are regularly deployed into northern seas, right? And maybe this was a surveillance plane that was trying to track Russian submarines somehow, or maybe it was, maybe mission was something else. I don't know, but I find this information to be interesting one. So I am sharing, by the way. Maybe you will hear some additional information or from some other sources. Don't know, and I will track their developments if there is any update. Of course, I will share additional information on that in next my videos. RIA Novosti is also reporting, dear friends, that during the past night, according to Russian Defense Ministry, 149 drones that was launched by Kyiv regime with assistance of NATO was intercepted while those drones were flying to strike deep into Russian territory. A lot of drones, a lot of interceptions. I can give you details. 57 drones were intercepted over the Bryansk region, 28 over the Black Sea, 24 over the Sea of Azov, and 20 over the Crimea. Another 17 drones were destroyed in Krasnodar region, 2 in Rostov region, and 1 in Belgorod region, mostly central and southern regions of the Russian Federation. At this point, no report, at least from RIA Novosti, about some casualties, about any casualties or more or less significant damage. But maybe during the day we will have an update on that, and of course I will share additional information in next videos. RIA Novosti is also reporting that according to Russian Defense Ministry, since the beginning of the special military operation, Kyiv regime lost 1.5 million military personnel approximately. So Ukrainian armed forces have lost 1.5 million military personnel since the start of special military operation, with over 520,000 casualties in 2025 alone. Colonel General Sergei Rudskoy, chief of the main operations directorate of the general staff and the first deputy chief of the general staff of the Russian armed forces, said in an interview with the Krasnaya Zvezda newspaper. So colossal numbers, of course, colossal casualties on part of Kyiv regime, and unfortunately, of course, there is big casualties on Russian side too. And generally speaking, this is a tragedy. Of course, what is happening, what Western ruling class was able to pull off with their while provoking this civil war basically inside the Russian world, and one might only hope that this bloodshed will end as soon as possible. But that's the information that Russian Defense Ministry, Russian military official is sharing, that Turkey regime suffered 1.5 million casualties since the beginning of special military operation. Also, at this point, a majority of our community, I'm quite sure, already knows that there is some open confrontation now between a former chief of Kyiv regime's general staff, Valery Zaluzhny, who is serving as Ukraine's ambassador into UK nowadays, and by British ruling class considered to be replacement for Zelensky. And between him and Zelensky, basically, Zaluzhny went to blame Zelensky failure of 2023 counteroffensive in southern sectors of the front lines, Zaporozhye region mainly. And well, there is a rumors now that Zelensky's team is also striking back on Zaluzhny, while making it clear that it was allegedly Zaluzhny that actually authorized terrorist attacks on Nord Stream pipelines, that Zelensky had nothing to do with it. He was not even informed. This is all nonsense, obviously, friends. Nord Stream pipelines were destroyed under the orders of Biden's administration, by US military, British military, Norwegian military. Poland was probably involved. But at the same time, as a scapegoat, of course, CIA ordered their puppets in Kyiv controlled territory to set up certain group that would work on destruction of Nord Stream pipelines. And that's exactly the direction now that American side is pushing German investigators, right, to track this group that was set up on Kyiv controlled territory as a scapegoat from the first day, right, to divert attention from US involvement. We all understand this, but I think this is the first time when Zaluzhny this openly attacked Zelensky, which might be indicator that London is accelerating process of replacement of leadership there in Kyiv. Maybe. We will find out. We will find out soon. But interesting development, nevertheless. Also, dear friends, well, we have reports that Russian armed forces have advanced in 9 areas of the Sumy region. It's not just Sumy region, but in this particular case, RIA Novosti is focused on that term. But also, what is interesting, location of the next trilateral talks between Washington, Moscow, and Kyiv regime will probably be Geneva again. And most likely next week we will see next round of negotiations. And dear friends, let me share my take on the situation. I think in next several weeks we might see significant de-escalation of the military phase of the confrontation, maybe even partial or full ceasefire. Mark my words, dear friends, I have reasons to believe that, and I see enough indicators to believe that in next several weeks, we might see agreement being reached between conflicting sides about ceasefire, either partial or full ceasefire on the line of contact. That's my take. We will find out soon, isn't it? Also, dear friends, probably already heard reports that allegedly Russia and US have already agreed on a sanctions relief for Russia. Economist was an initial source of this information, which is coming from Kyiv controlled territory. So you tell me how trustworthy how worthy this report might be. And also report suggests that potential contracts between Russia and US might reach some 12 to 14 trillion dollars. This information was debunked by a number of officials from the Russian side. But you know what? Who knows, man? Who knows what's going on behind the closed doors during the talks, let's say, between Dmitriev, economical envoy, let's say, of Russian president, and Steve Witkoff, who is a business partner of Trump, right? So there could be some works, by the way, in place about future cooperation of two countries in certain areas. Maybe true, maybe not, but there is clearly a probability of that. Also interesting that Trump wants allegedly to achieve peace in Ukraine by autumn, which is barely possible. I mean, peace is very different than ceasefire, right? Ceasefire is a temporary measure. Sustainable peace demands, of course, tremendous work to be done on numerous directions. So therefore, New York Times report is misleading, I will say, kind of. But I would not be surprised at all if Trump is hopeful that in the next several weeks there might be some ceasefire reached between the sides. And yet again, I personally think this is quite a probability. Ceasefire to be agreed in next several weeks, but it's not gonna be easy. It's not gonna be easy because by the way, especially when it comes to prolongation of the potential ceasefire or sustainable peace to be reached, because there are globalists in their place in this conflict, right? That are involved, and the globalists are not ready yet to acknowledge their defeat. They are actually involved very much, and look what one of the representatives or one of the puppets of the globalists is saying. Kaja Kallas, for example, number one diplomat in Europe, stated that EU not Kaja Kallas basically is saying that Russia has to agree on serious concessions, and we have this report from Euromaidan Press. I don't know what that media outlet is, but the report is that EU circulated the document demanding that Russia withdraw troops from Belarus, Georgia, not just from Kyiv controlled territory, not just from new Russian regions, basically. but also from Belarus, Georgia, Armenia, and Moldova as a part of Ukraine peace deal. The paper, distributed by EU top diplomat Kaya Kallas, also demands nuclear weapons out of Belarus, reparations for war damage, and free elections inside Russia with international monitoring. I mean, globalists are demanding Russian capitulation, basically. Globalists are demanding Russian capitulation. So you tell me how far away actual peace is from current standpoint. Quite far away. And well, puppet of globalists, another one, Zelensky himself is allegedly has ordered war plan development for another 3 years of this war. And well, if you take a look at the timeline, you will understand that this is exactly what globalists are dreaming about, to prolong this conflict between Kyiv regime and Russia for at least another 2-3 years, when first phase of rapid militarization of European NATO member states will be finalized, right? Because we already know Germany, Poland, many other countries, by the way, have tremendous plans on their militarization, and their first phases of these plans almost unilaterally answer by 2029, 2030, right? So no surprises that Zelensky is ordering plans to be worked on for prolongation of this war for another 3 years. But yet again, you might say, yeah, but Lemon, you just said there might be some ceasefire reached in next several weeks. Yes, I think so. I think there will be ceasefire reached in next several weeks. And of course, globalist control regimes in Europe and their allies will use this ceasefire to rearm, reorganize themselves and also their proxy regime in Kyiv. And after some time, I don't know, it will take how long this ceasefire will last. Several weeks, several months, or maybe up to a year. But at some point, globalists will, of course, reignite the military phase of the confrontation once they will be ready for that, let's say this way. And plans gonna be in place because, of course, globalists will provide all the necessary assistance to Kyiv regime to plan these 3 more years of the war. So it is what it is. If in next 2-3 weeks time, if before end of let's say March, maximum, by the way, if before end of March there is no ceasefire in place, I will acknowledge that my reading of the current developments was wrong, but I think I see picture quite clearly. When it comes to European hostility, friends, also, of course, we know that just about a week ago, head of British Defense Ministry had the contacts with some 10 European NATO member states, and topic of their discussion, their work, was to introduce some sort of a maritime blockade on Russia, while basically preparing ground to hijack commercial vessels under the Russian flag and under the flag of any other country that are linked to that are moving in and out of Russian ports, vessels themselves. And on this very topic, we have also this report that the European Commission prepares legal grounds to intercept Russian oil tankers. They call it intercept. In reality, it's just piracy, right? Hijacking their vessels. So in 20th sanctions package, the European Commission is developing a legal foundation to allow the interception of the tankers with Russian oil, which raises serious concerns among several European Union countries regarding the risks of military confrontation at the sea. Sources in Brussels, diplomatic circles, told the TASS News agency. And well, none of us are surprised to hear this report, of course. I have said there a million times before, by the way, and I guess many other commentators on internet, in alternative media, that Baltics region is definitely one of the areas where we might, at some point in the future, see direct clashes, military clashes between European NATO member states and the Russian Federation. Yet again, Europe is not yet globalists and globalist control regimes in Europe not yet ready to engage there openly in a war with Russia. They need ideally, they need another 3-4 years, right? I don't think they have that much time, but they will use whatever influence they have to reach ceasefire for now. Then at some point in several months, maybe a year, reignite their confrontation again, right? While prolonging current confrontation between Moscow and Kyiv as much as possible, so that in their mind, this conflict will last at least until 2029, 2030, when Germany, Finland, Poland, number of other European NATO member states will be militarized enough in their calculations to be engaged in an open war with Russia. We will see, but clearly trajectory is clear. Trajectory is clear. TASS news agency is also reporting, and I find this news a bit concerning because, just look at the headline itself. This one, by the way. What? There was a report. I lost the report. I'm going to find it, by the way. Just a second. I'm going to give you that report because Russian Transport Ministry was saying that they see no reasons to expect navigation to be blocked for Russian commercial vessels. And as I said, I find that kind of statement to be, a bit out of touch with objective reality, because a number of Western countries are openly saying, by the way, that they are planning to actually impose an embargo, right, on Russia. This is the report itself. And let's go through some details here. So Russian Transport Ministry not expecting traffic restrictions on the Gulf of Finland. Crucial, of course, navigational area, very important for Russian commercial vessels that are entering and leaving St. Petersburg, for example. So no vessel traffic restrictions are expected because of the ice situation in the Gulf of Finland until March 1st. Russian Transport Minister Andrei Nikitin told the reporters the forecast has actually improved. We thought serious constraints would start from February 19th, but harder bore-masters give more positive forecast, whatever that means. We do not expect restrictions until March 1st on their side, but proactively prepare for the risks on their other side, he said. And as I said, by the way, I find it a bit strange that when countries left and right are threatening Russian navigation, Transport Ministry is talking about freaking ice. Your vessels has been hijacked left and right already. You are facing threats, direct threats, right? 20 sanctions package might include the actual maritime embargo on Russia, and you are talking about freaking ice. How out of touch with freaking reality are you there in ministry? Really? What the hell is wrong with these people, man? This is insane. If anything, you have to talk about necessity to protect Russian commercial vessels, and thanks God, Narishkin, former, former director of FSB, by the way, just a couple of days ago, stated that Russian Navy will provide their protection for their commercial vessels, right? But I expect from Transport Ministry to be focused more on more relevant stuff than freaking ice. I don't know, man. Ice. Seriously, man, your vessels has been hijacked. And we are talking about ice, man. Anyways, man, they're quite every now and then you're gonna see some statements from some officials. By the way, you're gonna see some stuff that will force you to wonder: are these people what these people are freaking smoking or something? Anyways, when it comes to Europe-Russia relationships, dear friends, there is at least several countries in Europe that want to maintain good relationships with Russia. One of those countries is Hungary, of course, and Hungary is not happy. Budapest is not happy because they cannot maintain a level of relationships with Russia, economical partnership, for example, as they would like to see. And the reason is Kyiv controlled their territory and Kyiv regime. And reports are coming in that Hungary and Slovakia are beginning to impose some sanctions on Kyiv regime. Hungary allegedly stopped supplying diesel fuel to Kyiv regime, and also Slovakia joined their Hungary in this. And reports are that soon maybe both countries will begin restricting electricity supplies to Kyiv-controlled territory also. Maybe, and this is response on terrorist attacks on the Druzhba oil pipeline that connects Russia with Europe, that was constantly under fire from Kyiv regime. So I guess Budapest had enough, Bratislava also had enough of this terrorist activity of Kyiv regime that directly strikes at the strategical interests of these two European countries and their people, and they are coming up with some countermeasures. Let's see how far both will go, Hungary and Slovakia, but clearly tensions are rising between them and their Western-backed terrorist regime of Zelensky, which is not surprising, but clearly more needs to be done. If Slovakia and Hungary want to protect their interests, they actually can do much more than restricting some diesel exports to Kyiv-controlled territory. They can do much more, especially Hungary, by the way. Slovakia too, but especially Hungary. Let's continue with some other news. And I mentioned Nord Stream pipelines, isn't it? And Kyiv regime, Zelensky's camp, by the way, is actively trying now to blame Zaluzhny for that terrorist attack. Washington is happy with this development, obviously, because this will divert attention from U.S. involvement to this rogue group from Ukraine. We have articles on that. Der Spiegel, German media outlet, for example, is reporting that, CIA knew about Kyiv's plot to blow up the Nord Stream pipelines, and but they were opposing this attack. That's the narrative that is being pushed now, that, CIA knew about it, but they were opposing this attack. So they were not involved. America was not involved. They are freaking angels right there. And it was all these guys, man, Zaluzhny, Baluzhny, and all the other rubbish, right? And this information is clearly indicator, I will say, of increased tensions also between Washington and London, because Zaluzhny is London's candidacy to replace Zelensky. And with these increased attacks on Zaluzhny's personality, and also vice versa, Zaluzhny's attacks on Zelensky clearly indicates of these rising tensions between two major capitals in the Western world, two most powerful, I will argue, capitals in the Western world, Washington and London. And I'm interested how far this tensions will go. And later on, just in a minute, I will give you another news about these tensions. RT, meanwhile, is reporting that, Brussels prime minister or Belgium official, by the way, right? Belgium defense minister, not prime minister, but Belgium's defense minister is calling out some European leaders and their for public statements about nuclear weapons and calling them to keep their mouth shut, basically, about nukes. And you know, their friends, the German Defense Minister Pistorius spoke about nukes just a few days ago, how Germany should become a nuclear country, although he was talking about French nukes to be deployed in Germany. But there are some other people in Berlin that are actually pushing the idea of Germany developing its own nuclear weapons. And Germany is not alone. Sweden is on the same page. Poland is on the same page, by the way. And while this is happening, I'm quite sure it's only a matter of time when Italy's leadership will say, you know what, if everyone is going to become a freaking nuclear country now, nuclear armed country, then, I mean, why should not we? Right? And then Spain might do the same. You know, Turkey's foreign minister just a couple of days ago said that if other countries will breach non-proliferation treaty and will go nuclear, we will do the same. Right? On the other side of the world, Japan is preparing to become nuclear. At least conversation has begun in certain circles there. So it seems like we are heading towards full breakdown of a non-proliferation treaty. And interestingly enough, Belgium defense minister is calling European officials to shut their mouth and stop talking about nukes. Although he's not saying that we should not develop the nukes, but just stop talking about it, right? That's their narrative there. So European leaders should keep their mouth shut on nuclear deterrence. Belgium Defense Minister Theo Franken stated on Wednesdays, calling out their public statements on the issue of particularly ill-timed and inappropriate. So, as you can see, for him, it's ill-timed statements, right? They should do whatever they want, but at least don't talk about it. Commenting on X about a recent podcast interview with the German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, he was talking about Merz. Franken said regarding nuclear deterrence, I really don't understand why European leaders are so loose-lipped. Not wise. Please keep your mouth shut. So he was going after Merz, okay, but Pistorius, by the way, defense minister, also spoke about nukes literally a few days ago. Again, right? So clearly, nuclear non-proliferation is about to become a thing of a past. Europe is destroying. US is destroying non-proliferation, and Europe is also destroying non-proliferation treaty. And of course, we have to talk about Middle East, obviously, because things are escalating. Things are escalating there. Not surprisingly, of course. And when it comes to Middle East, dear friends, let me give you an update on that from Russian media, from Russian side, Russian perspective. RIA Novosti, for example, is reporting that U.S. Army finalizing preparations for strikes on Iran. No surprises there. I have said a million times before that a strike is inevitable, imminent, and I shared my take on the situation. I said many times before that Western ruling class wants to destabilize whole region, not just Iran, but whole region, to shut down navigation in the Persian Gulf and through Hormuz Strait, and to cut off China from Middle Eastern energy sources. This is a far-reaching strategy of the Western ruling class against China and Russia, first and foremost, although one might argue against all of humanity, right? And yes, US is finalizing its preparations. There is a New York Times article, for example, report that Israel and US are preparing strikes on Iran. The Israeli military is making extensive preparations for a possible joint operation with the United States against Iran in order to pressure Tehran to make concessions in negotiations. New York Times report citing Israeli officials. It's not about negotiations, by the way. It's about creation of the vacuum, power vacuum in Iran. That's the task that the US will have. Israel, Zionists basically, and their project Israel, they might have a little different agenda, but the Western ruling class clearly, pretty much clearly wants to destabilize whole region. They want to create power vacuum in Iran, and they push different ethnic groups in Iran to get engaged in a civil war, right? And to reach that point, to force Iranian people, first of all, Persians and Azerbaijanis, two biggest ethnic groups, by the way, to get engaged in a civil war on ethnic basis. Well, US will need to maintain high level of military pressure on Iran. That is a bombing campaign, terror campaign for weeks and potentially months on end. And that is the reason why I was saying, because they're going to go after not just political and military leadership in Tehran, they're going to go after political leadership or security forces in different provinces of Iran, right? And Iran is 3 times bigger than Iraq, so that they will need some time before they will actually create this power vacuum. They will probably have to bomb Iran 3, 4, 5, 7, 8 weeks on end, right? Just about everywhere, to eliminate any elements of centralized power, any elements of state institutions, right? So that this power vacuum then will be fulfilled by different groups. And I'm not sure they will succeed, but they definitely have an opportunity or technical means to cause tremendous damage to Iran, for sure. But I don't think it's going to be easy for them to provoke civil war between Azerbaijanis and Persians, because both are nation builders, both see themselves to be, absolutely a part of this civilization, rightfully so, right? And why they have to fight each other, man, or why they have to separate themselves from this great civilization? But Western ruling class gonna try. And they will have no issue with to activate Beluji ethnic groups and their armed forces. They will have no much trouble to activate Kurdish population big time and their military formations. But yet again, main ethnic groups are Azerbaijanis and Persians, and if these two ethnicities are solid, right, and united, West will fail. I can say that West will fail to engulf Iran in a civil war and to totally decimate the civilization. They will deal significant damage, but they will not be able to achieve their goal, which is a civil war, full-scale civil war in Iran that will spell throughout the region, and also regional wars between the neighboring countries. And Washington and London and all the other Western capitals are using whatever leverage they have over the Riyadh, for example, to push Saudis to attack its neighbor, Iran. And I'm afraid they might succeed in that. Saudi Arabia probably will attack Iran at some point. We will see. RIA Novosti, and the ultimate goal of the Western ruling class, as I already said, is to shut down navigation in the Persian Gulf and through Hormuz Strait. RIA Novosti is reporting that, more than 50 fighter jets were deployed to Middle East by US. Information is originated from New York Times, and it's definitely more than 50 planes. At this point, US probably has in our area in the Middle East and close by probably 350, maybe potentially even more planes that can reach Iran. In many cases, with their aerial refueling, obviously, right? But nevertheless, probably they have 300 to 350 planes, including those 2 aircraft carriers that Pentagon is deploying. And I think they still are not there yet. To maintain high level of military pressure on Iran, US probably will have to deploy another aircraft carrier. I think they will have to deploy another aircraft carrier, third one, maybe even fourth one, because 2 aircraft carriers and their dispersed aircrafts in throughout the Middle East, not gonna be enough. I think not gonna be enough to maintain high level of military pressure, high intensity of strikes for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks on end, right? They can carry out 1 wave of strikes, 2 waves of strikes, or 3 waves of strikes, for sure. They have enough equipment now in place, but nowhere near to be able to maintain this high level of military activity for a couple of months. And without it, they would not be able to create power vacuum. So therefore, I think actual attacks on Iran, I mean, there might be some low-level activity, military hostility towards Iran by US and Israel, but main phase, let's say this way, main phase will be launched no earlier than I think 2-3 weeks from now, maybe even month, because Pentagon still does not have enough military assets in the region for high level of pressure, although they have a lot. And satellites, you can see right now on your screen, satellite pictures that was made public by Chinese, on which you can see number of US military bases throughout the Middle East that are already housing, in some cases, a couple of squadrons even of the fighter bombers, right? And these red dots that you see, by the way, it's planes. It's fighter bombers, it's refueling tankers, and many other military equipment is being deployed. I think right now, as I said, by the way, US and Israel together can deploy at any given point about 400 to 500 planes to attack Iran, which is massive, obviously massive, by the way. And also, US can launch, I guess, during the several days, 300 to 500 cruise missiles. I guess they have enough assets for that, but this is not enough. On the paper, this might sound a lot, like 300 to 500 cruise missiles. That's a lot. Tomahawks, for example, it's a lot, obviously. 300 to 500 planes that can deliver their payload is also a lot. For 1, 2, 3 wave, yeah, that's a lot. They can definitely deal some damage to Iran, but it's nothing. It's not enough to create power vacuum in Islamic Republic. It's far away from being capable enough to create this power vacuum that Western ruling class wants to see, right? Because these 300 to 500 planes, by the way, how long they will be able to deliver the munition and the weapons before they will need repairs, or some of them will be intercepted or destroyed on the ground during the Iranian counter strikes. It's going to be a logistical nightmare. And even though there are many reports that since the Iraqi war, US never has deployed so many military assets throughout the region, still Pentagon is not there yet. they can come up with their large-scale attack once, twice, maybe even for a week. And that's it, man. They would not be able to sustain this high level of attacks. And Iran is massive. Iran is massive. Yet again, if you want to create power vacuum, you have to eliminate any elements of statehood everywhere, everywhere. And that requires not just, I mean, that will require thousands and thousands of strikes. Thousands and thousands of strikes. The US is not there yet. Although they are getting ready, and Trump was asked, by the way, about this situation, and he said that, Iran still has about like 10, 15 days to come around and agree on whatever demands of the West is, Israel and the West. And this is, of course, just a BS, right? Because all this topic of negotiations was just an attempt of Washington to basically delay a military phase because they know they are not ready to sustain high level of hostilities. Yes, they can launch 300 to 500 missiles in next 24 to 48 hours. They can conduct hundreds of sorties with their planes. Yes, they can do it, but this is not enough to create power vacuum. Absolutely not enough. And they cannot sustain high level of attacks for a month or two. They need more assets. They need more aircraft carriers. So until they're going to be like third aircraft carrier deployed there, we know that main phase of attacks not going to happen. And they are searching, as I said, by the way, they are looking for ways to push regional countries towards the war with each other. First of all, they are focused on Saudi Arabia and to attack Iran. And we have this report on this matter that US drops IAEA inspections rules and omits uranium enrichment bans in Saudi nuclear deal. The pact would put US industry at the center of Riyadh's nuclear build-out, giving Washington significant influence over the Saudi nuclear operations. Basically, US is, Western ruling class through US is trying to put some more pressure on Riyadh and also to give them whatever promises they can give, right? That, we will make you nuclear. You're going to attack Iran when we tell you. That's what is going on. And I think after 2-3 weeks of US-Israeli strikes on Iran, Saudi Arabia probably will get engaged. That will be a grave mistake on part of Saudis. But unfortunately, I think Saudi attack on Iran is kind of inevitable. Once Israel and US will launch their campaign, in couple of weeks, Riyadh will launch its military operation against Iran also. And all this, by the way, is yet again, all this stuff is done by Western ruling class to provoke, to engulf entire region into conflict and to shut down navigation into Persian Gulf. Western elites have no care about any of these countries, by the way. They just don't care, man. All they want is to shut down navigation into Persian Gulf, cut off China from Middle Eastern energy sources, and force Beijing to increase its dependence on Russia for years. This shutdown not going to be for weeks or two, by the way. It's going to be for many years, right? When navigation will be somewhat impossible in the Persian Gulf. And that will force Beijing, obviously, to increase its dependence on Russian energy up to a critical level. And what is interesting? Whenever there is some comments, by the way, in so-called media outlets from alternative media, they are always coming up. I just remember I was thinking to talk about this stuff, by the way. Probably you have also noticed this stuff, that these people always are saying that, well, Iran can shut down navigation through Persian Gulf if US attacks and this and that. And I'm thinking to myself, what the heck, man? Are these people really don't understand what is going on? Or, and that could be the case, maybe they don't understand, man. Very much possible because let's be real, man. Majority of commentators in alternative media, majority, not all, but majority, is just, I mean, have nothing to do with the journalism or analytics, by the way. They are not from this field, man. I grew up in journalism, right? And there is in journalism, there is certain steps in the development, right? You start with a correspondent, beginner, right? And after a decade or two, you are reaching the level of being analyst. That's the highest level in journalism, by the way, right? There is nothing beyond that. If you are analyst, then yeah, that's you reach the top, right, of the game. And only way you can prove that you are a good analyst is if your analytics, if your work, your predictions are correct more often than not. This is the only way. And I think I proved myself to be not bad in this game, right? Because I mean, like 70% of my predictions are becoming true, correct? So, and I grew up in this field, while these other people in alternative media, they are God knows from which field, man. They might be very good at their own profession, but journalism may not necessarily be their stuff. Or even if it is, for example, breaking points, by the way, both Sagar and Jetty, and what is the name of that girl? Balls or something, Crystal Balls or something like that. I mean, they both have their roots kind of in the journalism, right? But they are very poorly qualified, man. Very poorly qualified, really. Because I mean, I just watched their fragment from their recent program, and they were talking about how Iran gonna shut down navigation in through Hormuz Strait. This is the Hormuz Strait, by the way. How Iran gonna shut down through navigation through Hormuz Strait in retaliation, and how gas price is gonna rise in America, and how Iran can actually bring the pain to US. And I was thinking to myself, for God's sake, man, how out of touch with reality are you, man? Shutting down the navigation in the Persian Gulf and through Hormuz Strait is exactly the goal of the Western ruling class, right? That's exactly what they want. And Iran might try to shut down navigation only if, for example, they are no longer able to export their oil, and China is one of the biggest buyers, right? If not the single biggest buyer of the Iranian oil. But if Iran will be blockaded and Saudi and others will have opportunity to sell it, then in that case, well, Iran might consider to shut down navigation, but this is not their primary goal. They don't want this to be done because it will hurt them too. This will create actual tensions between Gulf nations and Iran, other Gulf nations and Iran. And Western ruling class will have a more leverage over these Gulf nations, Saudi, UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, and others, to launch military, to force them to launch their military campaign against Iran. So why Tehran will even consider seriously shutting down navigation in the Gulf or through Hormuz Strait if there is no necessity of doing so. Absolute necessity, and only way absolute necessity might exist is if West is cutting off Iran but allowing others to pass through. And West not going to do this because, yet again, Western world wants to shut down navigation completely for everybody. For everybody. Period. They want to cut off China, man. From energy sources, they want China to increase its dependence on Russia up to critical level, and then once this will happen, a few years from now, let's say, if they succeed with the Middle East, West will try to create tensions between Moscow and Beijing through their fifth columns, and I'm quite sure they have quite powerful fifth columns in both countries, right? And they will put fear in Beijing's leadership that, well, Moscow is about to turn its back on China and cut off energy supplies and this and that, and that will force, this way, Western ruling class will force China to go ahead with the military operation to secure closest energy fields, and these closest energy fields happen to be in Russia, by the way, in Central Asian republics of former Soviet Union and in Russia. So you see what's going on? West wants war, to provoke war between Russia and China. It's so simple, man. It's you don't have to be a freaking genius in analytics to see this, man. It's obvious, but these commentators, right, that pretend to be like on top of the game in the journalism and stuff, I mean, they're talking about anything but actual reasoning behind all these developments. And there is two explanations. Either they are just not really on top of the game and they don't really understand what the hell is going on, very much possible. Or in some cases, if they understand, they are just freaking lying to the public, to their viewers, right? Because that's what their masters want. And in that case, they are working, for whom. Anyways, let me give you some more news on the matter. And, well, I mentioned some tensions, isn't it, between Washington and London and all these very topics, friends. There is also an interesting report in Times, or from Times, British propaganda outlet, that UK allegedly is blocking Trump from using IRF bases for strikes on Iran. And it's up to you, dear friends, if you take this report seriously or not. I'm not taking this report seriously because I don't think London will actually ban US to use Diego Garcia military base, for example, for strikes against Iran. Not happening. I don't think UK will, in any shape or form, will oppose US military aggression. Exactly opposite is gonna happen, man. IRF will deploy its assets, already did, I think, into Middle East, maybe into Cyprus, right, to at least participate in air defense of Israel or something like that. Maybe, UK would not participate in direct strikes on Iran itself, but they will do whatever they can, right? So this is clearly a false narrative that is being pushed by British propaganda, and you know why? Because even though majority of Muslims in this world are Sunnis, and Iran is a Shiite Muslim country, it's still Muslim country. And UK is rapidly becoming a Muslim country itself. And to keep things calm inside the UK, they need to push this false narrative that, well, London is opposing all this situation around Iran. London don't want to be part of attacks on yet another Muslim country and stuff. They want this for domestic purposes, but in reality, of course, British militaries will provide whatever assistance they can to provide to Americans, if necessary. If no any more aircraft carriers from US Navy are capable of being deployed at this point, just two, Abraham Lincoln and Gerald Ford, or whatever, that is moving from Caribbean now towards Middle East, then Washington might demand UK to send its aircraft carriers if any of their two are battle capable. UK has Prince Wales, right, aircraft carrier, and Queen Elizabeth, and I'm not really sure either of these carriers are actually operational. It's a total garbage, by the way, right? They are only operational for a week or two, maybe, right? And then they have some technical issues and stuff. But if it happens that they are operational, they might be deployed too. If Washington don't has its own battle-capable aircraft carriers right now. And they might even demand from France to deploy Charles de Gaulle aircraft carrier, nuclear aircraft carrier, but to participate in attacks. It all depends on the battle readiness of U.S. Navy and their, U.S. militaries, basically, right? So don't believe in this nonsense that UK is opposing American aggression against Iran. No, UK is not opposing nothing. London, by the way, is a major force among globalists, right? So they are not opposing nothing. They are just they are good at misleading people. If Western elites, including British aristocracy and their elites, have learned something, is how to lie to everybody and how to mislead everybody. And dear friends, I have said on numerous occasions that because current major geopolitical strategy of the Western ruling class is directly directed against China and Russia, I have said that neither Moscow neither Beijing can afford to allow Western elites to destabilize the Middle East, shut down navigation through Persian Gulf, through Hormuz Strait. And I was personally even calling, one might say, for Moscow to deploy, to take a stand, principled stand, and make it clear for Western elites that if they attack Iran, Russia will take it as an attack on the Russian Federation. Because I think if this strategy of the Western elites succeeds, it's going to be fatal for Russia, because it's directed against Russia. It's going to be fatal for Russia. It's going to be fatal for China. It's going to be fatal for hundreds of millions of people, maybe billions of people, right? And therefore, I don't have trust in Beijing, by the way. I don't have trust in China, but at least Moscow has to take a stand, if it can, right? I mean, I don't really know full capabilities of Moscow, obviously, right? But if it can, it should take a principled stand there and try to deter Western ruling class from attacking Iran. And I mean, I don't know, maybe they're also seeing the big picture in a way I do. Maybe not, who knows? But day before yesterday, I reported about maritime exercises of Russian Navy assets and Iranian Navy assets in a region. And well, we have an update on that. It's not just the Russia-Iranian naval exercises. China is also there. China is joining these exercises, by the way. So we have this report on RT that Russia, China, and Iran will conduct joint naval exercises as a part of a growing military cooperation aimed at reshaping the global balance of power at sea. Russian presidential aide Nikolai Patrushev has reported, and well, this is good, man. This is good. Not enough, clearly not enough, by the way. Military or naval exercises are not going to deter Washington, not going to deter London, not going to deter nobody in the Western elites from launching this final phase of the destabilization of the Middle East. But it's something still, and there may be before main phase of attacks on Iran from West will begun, Moscow will actually make stand. And as I said, I am tremendously disappointed in China. I have no trust in China. I don't see China as a true friend of Russia, personally. But out of self-defense, out of interests of survivability, maybe Beijing will contact Russian side. Maybe there will be some talks between the two capitals, right, to stand together to deter Western elites. Because if West succeeds in this geopolitical game that is absolutely directed against Russia and China, then this will be fatal for both countries. I mean, if Moscow and Kremlin, Moscow and Beijing understands this, then they should take stand until it's too late. Because once missiles are flying, once bombs are dropped, then well, it's going to be extremely, extremely difficult to avoid most dramatic consequences. I hope I'm explaining well enough, by the way. And well, of course, all this situation is influencing oil energy markets, and Brent oil brand is increasing in price. It has reached $70+ for a barrel. And you might say, you know what? Well, all this escalation might play on hand of Russia, because Russia will sell its oil more expensively, and I have to disagree, because yet again, strategical stability of the Middle East and open navigation in the Persian Gulf and through Hormuz Strait is unbelievably more, uncomparably more important for Russian security and safety than high prices on oil. There is no comparison there. If Western ruling class succeeds in its plans, that again, I mean, this might be fatal for Russia, for China, for emerging multipolar world, for potentially for whole of humanity. So there is nothing to compare. It's not about money. It's about survivability of the humanity, right? And Western ruling class, and I have said many times before this, they are evil force, and they only see this life as their own playground. They see this world as a place where they're gonna rule. They will, and they were in charge of this world largely for the last at least 500 years, right? 300 to 500 years. At least that's what their understanding of the world is, and they want to maintain this dominance by any means. So this is a struggle for survivability, I will argue. And dear friends, I think, and some people might argue with me that, well, energy sector gonna collapse in this world, and this will hurt U.S. also and Western world also. Dear friends, Western ruling class has no freaking care about it. They don't care, man, how much ordinary citizen in U.S. gonna pay for its gas, man. Do you really think they care? They don't, man, and they are preparing to minimize their strike on Western economies. You think U.S. overtook Venezuela right before attacks on Iran for what? For what reason? For democracy to thrive in Venezuela? I mean, come on, man. No, you think U.S. is deploying militaries in Nigeria for what? For what reasons? You think U.S. is increasing its influence on Angola for what? For what purposes? I'm mentioning countries that are tremendously rich with their oil, by the way, right? So yeah, they will try to. It will have an impact, obviously, on energy. If West succeeds in shutting down navigation through Hormuz Strait in the Persian Gulf, that will hurt world economy in general terms. Obviously, it's inevitable. It will hurt China, by the way, and that alone is enough to hurt world economy. But Western ruling class is operating with a different set of values, different set of tasks, right? And they will see these disturbances on energy market, disturbances in terms of supply chains, and so on, as just a minor inconvenience. That's all. And I mean, if anybody thinks that Western elites actually care about anybody, any human being on this world except themselves and their close ones, then sorry, man, but that kind of attitude is wrong, right? They don't care about nobody. Okay, dear friends, if I may, I still have a number of news left there, but as I said in the beginning, I'm bit short on the time, so I will end the live stream on that. Hopefully, you find new segment interesting and useful. There was no super chat on Rumble, nothing through PayPal also or Boosty, so therefore there's nothing to react on basically at this point. So I will end live stream on that, dear friends. Have a wonderful day, great upcoming weekend, and when it comes to my next programs, I don't know about tomorrow, dear friends, but on Sunday I think I will launch live stream at 3 p.m. Traditional community chat, and hopefully all of you will manage to join the live stream, and there are many other members of our community too. This is it. Once again, thank you for your time. Have a wonderful day, and take care. Bye.